one, roll the footage. And we are live. We have been stealing for you guys. Yes, we have been stealing. We have been stealing for you from one of the biggest brands on the planet. And what we have been stealing are the two marketing secrets that you can implement immediately this week. So, welcome, Michael, the referability master Roderick, and myself, Simon the Sales Booster Severino. I hope we don't get busted during this episode, so it will be a quick one. We have to run soon. And you learn those two things that we stole for you in a shorter time than it takes you to get your latte. We will share with you the two things. One is how to craft identities, and the other one is how to create a third space. So I hand it over to Michael, the referability master Roderick, for the first part.
Yeah. So Starbucks is actually one of my favorite examples of using messaging to basically establish identity, right? And a lot of the time when we think about messaging, when we think about sort of crafting language around something, we think, oh, well, what's going to be kind of the coolest name that we can give something, and we don't necessarily always think about, well, what's the name that if we give it, it's going to give the other person an identity. It's going to make them feel and think in a certain way. So my favorite example of this is from the very, very early stages of Starbucks when they first got started, and you went and you ordered a tall, a grande, or a venti, as opposed to a small, a medium, and a large. Now, what I think is very, very interesting about the language here is that when you order a small, it sounds diminutive. It already sounds like, something that's not actually very significant. But when you change the word small to a tall, all of a sudden, it's got a positive connotation to it. And then you go to grande, which is medium. Usually medium is middle of the road. Like when we hear medium, we think, medium, etc. But grande sounds grand, right? Like it sounds bigger. It sounds more impressive than anything else. And let's face it, most people are ordering a small or a medium a lot of the time, and a large is if you're really, really going for it. So even just by going with this like venti idea, you're thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, I'm doing something really big for myself. So that was the initial sort of choice that they made on the naming side, but they carried that over into the namings of the coffees themselves. And during this holiday season, that's kind of a perfect time, right? Again, for people to establish their identities. So you probably know somebody who is a PSL person, right? Pumpkin spice latte. Now think about it. If you just said coffee with pumpkin, it's not as interesting. Or if you said coffee with nuts instead of chestnut praline latte, think about the difference in identity in level. So for yourself, as you're starting to look at the offers that you have, the things that you're calling your masterminds, your groups, whatever you are marketing, you want to start to ask yourself, how is the language that I'm using actually creating an identity for people? And giving them such a level of specificity that it makes them feel good about themselves.
And guys, if you are not reading Michael Roderick's emails, they are amazing. You definitely choose each word very intentionally and think about it from the subject line to... I read them sometimes twice because I was like, what was he thinking here? Why did he choose this word? And look how this word works together. He picks it up again. Look at this. So I like the mechanics of your emails because you're a pro. Where can people get your email if they want to subscribe?
Sure. If they just go to smallpondenterprises.com, they can right on that front page, they'll see a link to sign up for the daily email.
It's a little masterclass in copywriting, guys. So you do it all the time, and you work with clients too, right? You help them find better
Yes.
words for their offers. Do you have some examples from clients where they were looking for a word and you found a word that works?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time, it deals with the idea of sort of positioning, right? So there are lots of, let's say, photographers out there, right? And photographers are usually sort of a dime a dozen. But when you don't position yourself as a photographer just taking pictures, and you position yourself as a photographer who helps people show up without feeling fake, that's a very, very different dynamic. That's a very, very different sort of level of positioning and sort of thinking about your process and thinking about the work that you do. So a lot of the time it's asking yourself, okay, well, what is some language that could really kind of change that dynamic, right? And start to get people saying, oh, okay, that's what I do. So if somebody's saying I'm doing visual representation for thought leaders on social media, it's very, very different than saying I take some pictures and
Yeah,
put it on social media.
I love this. I'm thinking of how I take pictures, how my wife take pictures. It couldn't be more different. So I do 100 pictures, 99 of them are BS, and one is interesting, but it's kind
Yep.
of artistic interesting. It's weird, and but it's interesting and tells a story. And then my wife says she creates the perfect environment and the perfect picture, but then they all freeze and we are like this. And so I can see how he can position himself by never freeze again in front of the camera or be you, because it is a
Exactly.
style. Yeah.
Yeah. Because so often photography ends up being awkward,
Yeah.
right? So often we feel like we have to sort of present ourselves in a certain way. So if you've got talent to help somebody show up in a way where they don't feel awkward, then that's a differentiator. That's something that's really going to help somebody sort of understand what you're doing that really just stands out from everybody else. And that's actually in another instance, I was chatting with someone who does a lot of this kind of messaging work, and we talked about the number of people who use stand out as their concept or as their bigger thing. And when we were talking about how he's really good at helping people who have a lot of competition really be the ones that like everybody else follows, even though there's all of this competition. So what we came up with was not stand out, but stand apart,
Mm,
which is, again, it's a slight variation, right? It's a slight variation, but it communicates a very, very different message.
absolutely. Guys, we're moving into the second thing that we were stealing for you after one word from our sponsors. Run well, even when you are on vacation. Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review. For more information, head over to strategysprints.com. The second thing we stole is creating a third space. Now, if you go to a Starbucks, I'm in Europe, so the first time I saw a Starbucks, I was like, oh my gosh, do we really need this? We have proper coffee here, right? We don't need this. But it's not about the coffee, it's about the space. And the space is actually a particular one and a very interesting one. Even in Europe, we have cafes, but this is a third space. It's a different cafe. And I used to sit in if I go to a city and I need Wi-Fi and I'm new in that city, I don't know where to get it, I usually go to Starbucks. And I observe the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is really a space full of, in addition to what Michael just shared, full of richness. It's a mix of a co-working space, a potential flirting space, a working space. It's so many things at once, and there is something in the air, right? There is, you smell the coffee, you smell food. So it's a very rich space with a ton of possibilities, and you can use it in multiple ways. You can stay very anonymous and do your thing, or you can interact and even socialize. And I think that is a space that is interesting because it's full of opportunities, right? And it's a very relaxed atmosphere. Nobody's expecting anything from anybody. And it's kind of between two spaces, right? You have your working space, you have your life space, and in between, there is this liminal third space. So how can you guys apply this to your business? How can you create a space? We started off with your choices around words. You can create a new space by choosing words that open up a different perspective. Colors. Which colors are you using, and what do these colors create? Visuals. Which visuals are you developing, using, creating? And what do they do? For example, if you have been in one of any of our mastermind, you see that I'm scribbling around all the time. I can make myself. So I'm constantly using the visual aspect of thing because it's here. Zoom is a visual place, and so we can use that. How I was one of these frustrated guys always in planes, flying to their clients, and then we would meet in a third space, which would be like a Hilton hotel or a Hyatt, and there would be the client's team, and there would be our consulting team, and we would work in that third space. But they had no soul. So I was thinking of how we can create places that are more interesting, that are more human, and that fit more how we work. And so over the years, we have changed those spaces. One of those spaces is the 200K Club, right? It's in between. It's not your team meeting, is not your life situation in the garden. It's something in between, and I'm constantly thinking about how does it feel for the users? How can we make it more interesting, more safe, more creative, more crisp? What is it that we can do as a host to make that space? And in a few weeks, I can tell more about experiments that we are running right now. We're trying to bring everything, like to create like a garden and the ground floor and the first floor and everything in one place. Because so far we had multiple different places. There is Zoom where we meet. There was Slack where we communicate from during the week, and now we're trying to bring everything together in just one place. It will be everything in one place if that experiment works out. And the principle is the same. Can you create one room? Because if you remember the Petri dishes, when scientists use Petri dishes, there is a reason they do it. Because in that confined space, that's a space on its own, and the elements start doing things together that create emergent properties. And that emergence is only possible because energy is contained in one room. If you have multiple rooms or open rooms, then the energy disperses and there is no magic between those particles. That's why you have Petri dishes, which are one room with a clear boundary, and you create the conditions for stuff to happen on its own. And so I'm sure in 2 weeks, when we come back here for Steal It, I'm not telling you guys what we're stealing. Or should we tell them what we're stealing?
Nah, let's keep them in suspense.
Okay, we will steal something for you again, but we're not telling you what it is. But we can say that we will steal things that you can apply immediately to your marketing, to your sales, because that's what we do. Michael, Roderick in the house, everyone. Thank you for being here, Simon Severino. Peace out.